Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on conservation solutions here at Esri. I'm David Gadsden, Director of Conservation here on our Industry Solutions team. I'm joined today by Matt Bullock. Matt, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Matt Bullock, and I'm a product engineer on our ArcGIS Solutions team here at Esri.
Thanks, Matt. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. We do have a Q&A planned for the conclusion of the presentation today. So as we go through the material, if you have questions that come to mind, you'll see in the webinar there's actually a questions section where you can type in and submit those. We'll get to as many responses as possible before we conclude today. There will also be a brief survey at the conclusion of the session, and we would really appreciate any of your feedback as far as how we can improve these presentations and content in the future. And finally, the session is being recorded, and so if you'd like to go back and review any of this material, share it with your colleagues, you're absolutely welcome to do so. Let's go ahead and get underway. So as we all know, the world is facing incredible challenges today, social, political, economic, and of course across the entire environment around the world. It's a very difficult time, and we want to convey our hope and aspirations for each and all of you, health and wellness to you, your families, the communities around you, and just hope that we can all persevere and continue to work ahead to address these complex issues. We feel strongly that a geographic approach to understanding and tools based on geography can help us work towards resolution of some of these issues. But in so many ways, the work that you're doing has never been more essential. And we feel strongly about our role in helping support your work with technology and GIS. So Esri has been focused now for well over 50 years on developing fundamental technologies for geography and mapping. We've grown very carefully, listening very carefully to people like you and the work that you're doing to put forward the best available tools that we can build to help advance your work. So we really work towards achieving the vision of our founders that back in 1969 had the vision that geographic technologies could be important for helping human understanding, better decision-making, better monitoring and analysis of what's happening in the world, and the ability to make those tools broadly available to help make a difference. So it's our role to serve you, and we're deeply grateful for that opportunity. Conservation has always been a fundamental focus of Esri's, both partnering with the conservation community, illuminating programs and organizations and individuals that are making a difference in the world, and to really lean in on complex global issues increasingly through broad international partnerships. And that community is significant. I've been reflecting on the scale of the conservation community that we serve, and it's incredibly humbling. Now, no organization works in isolation, but I want you to realize that not only with your immediate partnerships around you that you're likely collaborating with as you develop your programs, you're also part of a large international conservation GIS community. And it's our role to try to help facilitate that discussion across that community, both with technologies that are available and going out there, methods, people that are breaking new ground and moving the ball forward in these complex issues. We really hope to contribute and help you make a difference in these complex topics. We also partner with leading institutions around the world. And so our intentions are amplified through other leading institutions that are at scale working on very complex issues and leveraging best available technology to better understand the challenges that we're facing. There are two partnerships that I want to call out. The Rainforest X Prize is a $10 million 5-year initiative to drive innovation in mapping and understanding of rainforest biodiversity. This program is just sort of getting underway, and if you'd like to learn more about it, I encourage you to visit their website. The challenge will involve mapping biodiversity in a rainforest environment in a short time frame, and then having another brief time frame to analyze and make sense of what has been learned. And so it's very exciting and potentially will lead to new capabilities in understanding and mapping biodiversity. Our colleagues at Microsoft have taken on a new initiative to build a planetary computer. That's something that we are contributing to as well. That allows us to help make available all of the rich geospatial content which is being collected around the world, and then bring new analytical capabilities powered by AI and other spatial analysis means to work towards a more enriched, capable decision support platform on a global basis for the challenges that we're obviously facing. So I want to talk about Esri's technology. So fundamentally, Esri's contribution to the conservation community is ArcGIS. This is the product of over 50 years of continuous software development. And it's not simply a product or even just a platform. ArcGIS is a complete geospatial infrastructure. And I want to take a moment to describe what we mean by that. So our geospatial infrastructure is a collection of web services enabled systems, providing applications and services for a wide variety of purposes. Organizations use this infrastructure to share content, services, and applications beyond just the individual or organization level. It's important for conservation because it allows governments, NGOs, citizens, and other organizations to support practical integration of all activities related to conservation programs or initiatives. It also enables communities to connect with other public and private organizations, taking advantage of each other's data, services, and even apps that can be shared across that community of practice. So this infrastructure supports desktops, web apps, open data, offline data collection, and has the capability today to bring together all workflows across the conservation community in order to be able to begin to address the scale of complex environmental challenges that we're facing. ArcGIS Online is the cloud-based mapping and analysis platform that as part of that geospatial infrastructure. So you use it to make maps, analyze data, share and collaborate. ArcGIS Online is a very vast multi-tenant infrastructure by which you and your organization can have their own portal, which is completely owned and managed by your organization. It is secure in that we work directly with international standards bodies to meet accreditation standards so that our cloud offering can be used by federal agencies, national governments around the world, corporations, et cetera. So the security model is very rigid. And if you have any questions about the security model, I would encourage you to visit trust.arcgis.com to learn much more about our fundamental approach to security. Now, users in ArcGIS Online, which you invite to participate, you have a lot of granular control on what they have access to. So you can form groups by which different individuals that are collaborating on a topic can store and create and share information. You might have your own content, which is not shared. The organization may decide that any of its content is only visible to your members that are signing in and participating in ArcGIS Online or into your portal in ArcGIS Online. Or you can decide to publicly share anything and everything. It's entirely up to you. You have a lot of control as to how content is stored and managed in ArcGIS Online. So even though it is a cloud-based platform, it is secure in an enterprise class sense, where you make all of the decisions about sharing and openness. Now, having worked with many conservation organizations over the past 2 decades, the fundamental benefit of ArcGIS Online, I think, for most organizations today is simply data management. So there are many files, shape files, layers that are spread out and oftentimes in conservation groups across different laptops or machines or instances. ArcGIS Online, by bringing that portal to the organization, you have a place to store those legacy files in an organized way, or take operational files that are important for your work and turn them into live web services enabled feature services so that you can support transactions with mobile devices and updates and sharing in a new way. So the capabilities of ArcGIS Online are not only like organizational in that you can organize your data, you can organize your people, they can make maps, they can do their analysis directly in ArcGIS Online, but you also have a complete set of applications that work seamlessly with this cloud infrastructure. So if you want to take a device into the field and collect something and make an observation, or keep track of where your vehicles are going or where your people are going, all of those apps are available. They're very simplified and focused, and they seamlessly work with that geospatial infrastructure, all hosted and managed for you by Esri. So the infrastructure is managed for you, but the control and operational management of how you use that platform is entirely up to you. Finally, Esri invests heavily in standards and interoperability. So there is no more capable platform in the world for tying in services from other applications. This gives us a significant opportunity in the field of conservation for tools that have been developed from nonprofits or universities or startups to be able to participate in a much greater, much more mature, complete information system. Now, another terrific benefit of ArcGIS Online is the content that's sitting there available for you. So this migration into the cloud over this 50-year history of the evolution of GIS at Esri really opened up a new opportunity for people to share their data. National government agencies, academics, international organizations, private companies, there is the ability today to publish that content and share it in a way which is discoverable and usable by the millions of individuals around the world that are already leveraging ArcGIS. So what that means for your conservation organization is that if you utilize satellite imagery such as Landsat or Sentinel-2, that data is already being piped into ArcGIS Online and it's immediately available for you. You don't need to go download a large file and manipulate it. That's part of this web services-oriented world that we're living in today. It's a vast collection of content, imagery, an elevation service of the entire world. That elevation service actually brings in many contributions from Esri's user community. It might be a LiDAR elevation, a LiDAR-based elevation model from a city in Africa. It could be a global coverage from from another major provider. All of these services are federated into one seamless elevation service that is available for your use. Now, there's a very important concept that's important to spend a moment on, and that is image services. So when we share Landsat imagery to you or Sentinel imagery to you, or any multi-spectral imagery to you through ArcGIS Online, it is not just a collection of thumbnails of that raw image. It's not a picture of the image. It is the raw content and the bands of light that are available within every pixel. So it is useful for analysis. You can actually use that Landsat service and ask your web browser to see an NDVI of that raw imagery and within seconds see it. Or to use the elevation service and ask a question about view sheds. What's visible from this place? And click anywhere in the world and get that answer. So this is a very significant advancement if you've spent time in the field of GIS, whereas traditionally there was a lot of wrangling of large files, computation time to run tools and models to get to the point of seeing a view shed or seeing an NDVI. Those are now live, capable analytical services that are just offered out of the box as soon as you turn on ArcGIS Online for any of your organizations. So today we're focused on field operations, and this is sort of breaking open that collection of apps that I mentioned that are fundamental to ArcGIS Online. So we have a sort of an orchestration of apps that serve specific purposes for field operations, whether you're planning the work that is intended to be done, how you get people to that place, how you provide context as to what's around those field crews when they arrive at that place. So a disconnected copy of all of your spatial data in a nice map view when you get there. And then, of course, collecting information. Am I collecting a survey? Am I interviewing someone? Am I observing conditions of an asset in the field? Or do I just want to move down the road, and when I see something of interest, simply tap the screen and collect that feature, right? Or collect the type of pathway that I'm on. Is it paved? Is it bumpy? Whatever it may be. So there's a set of appropriate applications for different specific needs. And we've built out these tools by listening very carefully to the community that we serve and putting forward solutions that are optimized and configurable for really any workflow that involves managing a field crew and collecting spatial data about what's going on out there. And as you all know, these field operations can be complex. And so over time, we've moved towards even management of the field teams, by which you can task teams to go to the right place at the right time, or through an optimal route to reach multiple sites that need to be visited, et cetera. So not only traditional GIS sort of standing there and collecting some spatial data, but actually coordinating the entire workforce. So this is a toolbox, right? This is a collection of available apps that your organization can grab as needed and configure based on the work that you're doing. Now we have a new capability that is a solution called ArcGIS Mission, and it is very focused on more tactical field operations. This may be more ideal for conservation or wildlife law enforcement setting, or more sort of resources in the field reacting to an event that's evolving very quickly. But it brings not only the planning capabilities, but in the field coordination. So my mobile devices are actually able to communicate in a peer-to-peer basis. It brings a whole live communication capability to the set of apps that we already discussed. And so we have an overall comprehensive view. Where are my folks in the field? What are they observing? We're chatting back and forth, and we're reacting to a potentially complex situation. So I just wanted to flag that ArcGIS Mission is also a new capability from Esri. Now, when we bring all of these tools forward, along with the more advanced real-time capabilities and the open and interoperable means that we have to tether in other robust systems, and there are many terrific initiatives out in the conservation community that are focused on IoT, focused on integration with many sensors and services. Bringing all of that together gets us to a place where GIS is now present across the entire operational theater of conservation. It has that opportunity today. And I think that traditionally, GIS is considered sort of a back office function, right? There's some collection activity, you hand some files to a GIS person, they build a map for you, or they build a report for you. And that is then repeated when new information comes in. This is an entirely different paradigm that we're describing today, and we have the capability to roll out today in an easier manner than has ever been possible before, by which we can tie it all together. Other conservation technologies, new sensors, the fundamental content that's persistent in ArcGIS Online, and give you the ability to organize workflows and systems that are optimal for your organization's work. Now, it's not just about making observations and looking at maps of those observations. Analysis has always been fundamental across ArcGIS. So the ability to have multiple layers combined, compared, understanding the influence of many different features across the geographic landscape. This is what helps us really derive insights from complex data, which might not be obvious by just looking at a map. So today in ArcGIS Online, we can do much of that analysis simply in the web browser. And so traditionally, this was sort of an expert activity that required a desktop, a significant amount of training to be able to bring in and wrestle with the data sets to be able to run tools and get to that output. Today, we've actually taken a collection of over 27 of the most predominantly used and useful spatial analysis tools, and we've moved them directly into ArcGIS Online so that you can simply remain in that organizational view of everything going on and train your analysts in much less time to be able to combine the data sets that are coming in or simplify them. Let's say you have a lot of sensitive data about the locations of wildlife and you would not wish to share those discrete locations. You have the ability to run a model to simply create a surface of predominance. So where is that wildlife likely to be spread out over a continuous elevation type model, right? Sort of a hotspot map or an elevation surface, but based on all of the points that you've collected about observations. Now, when you run one of these analyses, it produces a new layer, which is immediately stored and managed in ArcGIS Online in that portal and in that catalog of overall collection of the work that you've had underway. Now, all of the content that's coming in needs to be quickly understood. And beyond mapping that we've been focused on for all of these years, we have a new paradigm, which is the dashboard. So ArcGIS dashboards have become incredibly valuable around our user community for being able to take the status and the summary of many different layers of information, potentially live feeds, even camera feeds in some instances that are coming in, and to simply summarize that so you can provide for management, for decision makers, for the organization, sort of a one view collection of everything going on that's important. Now, it's very simple to take the content that's derived from your mobile data collection or your mapping activities and to push those into a dashboard, which means it's not as though your organization can only have one dashboard. You could actually have dashboards for many different, let's say, lines of business. So you might have a finance dashboard or a protection dashboard or a wildlife or an ecology monitoring dashboard. And the people within the organization that need to see that information can have this comprehensive view and keep track, and let's say near real time or as soon as those services are getting connected, sort of a snapshot view of what's going on. So we think this is really valuable, and it also begins to convey that operational capability of what ArcGIS can bring to support your work. Now, another simple application that is supported with ArcGIS Online are story maps. And story maps are collections of multimedia content, photos, videos, the story that you wish to tell your community, your donors, your partners, even within your organization. They are a new medium for bringing geography forward with other enriching context to be able to tell a story. They're incredibly simple to build. There's no programming required. And this capability has really taken off across the GIS community in a way that it's really incredible scale. So over 1 million story maps have been published by Esri users, and they're incredibly popular in the manner that they're consumed by the audiences that are viewing them. So I want to encourage you, if you're not already, to build a story map. Think of a topic that you're interested in, pull together. It could be a trip that you've taken. It could be a project that you're working on. But just think about how to introduce that project, and rather than an email or a PDF or some other package, leverage the geospatial content that you have or could create, or you could highlight from the Living Atlas in order to sort of put out this new medium. They're very simple web-based applications, but they work very well on mobile devices. They're very easy to share out through social media. So it's a new capability that we want to be sure that you're aware of. Now, the other offering that is significant to conservation and the other evolutionary step of GIS is not only GIS serving experts that have the training to use the software, or organize and manage their data in support of an organization, or organizations that may have dozens or thousands of people participating with advanced software to manage an enterprise system, but rather supporting entire communities. And so we have the ability today to push out open data in an extremely useful way in many different open standards, so that if your organization simply wants to share content with the world, there is a terrific way of doing it that is very simple and very standards-based and very robust. You also have the ability to work with a community to actually deploy apps, so that you could publish a survey application that you could share with all of your partners. And those partners could be individual citizens, they could be other nonprofits, they could be government institutions. So the ability to deploy out complete solutions to be able to address complex problems is supported with this technology called the ArcGIS Hub. And the ArcGIS Hub is a meta portal that can be configured around an initiative. So a given organization can take the lead, or a council of organizations can take the lead, and you can bring the power of GIS and all of these integration capabilities and all of the apps and the dashboards, and even management of events where we're going to get together and do work in the field or collect information in the field. That can all be managed in an ArcGIS Hub, and then the results shared back with that community. So this extends that organizational ArcGIS Online infrastructure, which would be carefully managed for just your organization, and it creates sort of a twin that can be opened up as you choose to support a much larger community of practice. So we're here today to talk about ArcGIS Solutions. And ArcGIS Solutions is a specific team that evolved within Esri software development. And it actually is part of our core software development team, in that they will take the building blocks of ArcGIS and the products that are available across ArcGIS and optimize their use for specific industries. So rather than providing just this incredibly robust toolbox to a given industry and putting the burden on them to put those tools together to accomplish workflows that might be common across a huge community of organizations, the ArcGIS Solutions team actually builds those turnkey solutions for those industries. So these are configurable tools. They're fully supported by Esri, just like other products. You can get technical support if you have issues with these offerings. They support a wide array of industries. Over the past decade, they've been focusing on common needs of local governments, environmental solutions, health, and emergency management. And early this year, we released the initial offering of ArcGIS Solutions for conservation. And that's what we're here to really spend some time on today. So ArcGIS Solutions for conservation are optimized to be able to leverage that Living Atlas content, bring it into your ArcGIS Online organization, and then support a variety of apps that have been optimized for common workflows by the conservation community. So my colleague is going to dive into those specific workflows as part of our initial release in just a moment. But I want to make the point that we're leveraging ArcGIS in its entirety for these solutions. So that also means the open and interoperable capabilities to connect with other conservation technology, which, as you all know, is evolving very rapidly. There's a lot of innovation and investment going into new technical capabilities in conservation. By piping in through those standards and secure means, we can then federate and bring in this content from other services and provide comprehensive dashboards, for example, that can be used to specifically put in front of decision makers what's needed in a near real-time basis. So with that introduction, I'm going to go ahead and transition to my colleague, Matt, and he'll spend some time actually showing you about the conservation solutions that we've just developed.
Thanks, David. All right, so we've been working with conservation users that manage protected areas to identify common patterns and business challenges that they face every day. And so through that work, we've uncovered 4 key areas or priorities that commonly came up when we're talking with those conservation users. So ecology, protection, outreach, and infrastructure. And so kind of thinking about those core areas and kind of how information and workflows are organized within that, we made a set of solutions that kind of fit within what we'll talk about today is ecology, protection, and outreach, and coming soon in a future release will be the infrastructure as well. So let's take a deeper dive into each of these areas, and we'll start with ecology, specifically what we were calling wildlife management. And so the wildlife management solution helps conservation organizations that are managing protected areas capture and monitor wildlife observations. And so when we are kind of a key part of building solutions is aligning the actual technology, so all of the great information that David walked through within the ArcGIS platform. So there's a lot of components of technology that happen in ArcGIS. And a key part of that is we want to make sure we align that technology with the real user personas that are happening in conservation organizations. And so within wildlife management, the kind of 3 main ones that we uncovered, in addition to I'm mentioning GIS professional, is field worker, protected area staff, which could be a larger group of people, so ecologists, biologists, just analysts within the department. So kind of it ranges in staffing, but usually someone that's kind of working in the data itself. And then a protected area manager. So someone that's managing the protected area needs to get a larger overview of the system. So as a field worker, I'm out in the field collecting wildlife observations. This may be, I need to collect something quickly. And so that's where I can use the rapid wildlife reporter, kind of a big button interface, quickly collect information, get a count of the animals happening, submit that pretty fast. I can also, if I need to get more detailed wildlife observations, and so kind of I need a larger view of the herd and kind of a breakdown of the animals, I can use Wildlife Observation Reporter. So both of those are surveys, and we'll show all of this technology in a second. And then as a member, kind of say I'm a biologist back in the office, I want to do some reporting or analysis. So just like the analysis tools David mentioned, we've enabled in an application. So I'm in a web browser, I can now do analysis. I can generate reports on our data. So this is kind of nice where maybe I don't have access to ArcGIS Desktop. If I do, that's great too. I can use those in collaboration together. But we also wanted to provide a web experience for that information. So now if I'm also as a protected area manager, I want to be able to kind of look at an overview of what's happening specifically within our ecology and the wildlife, maybe as invasive species coming in. So right now we'll talk about wildlife observations, but as that grows, I want to be able to look at the larger kind of ecology within the park. I can use the wildlife observation dashboard. And then kind of that next phase, I want to see all of the things happening in the park. And as I mentioned, kind of ecology, protection, and outreach that we'll talk about today. All of that information collected in the field with these solutions is showing up in one single place, one dashboard. And so that's really helpful to help me get a view. Maybe I was asking before, me as a protected area manager, for printed maps every day, or I have maps up on the walls, or whatever it may be, but I need that kind of constant status of the protected area. This is a way that I could use ArcGIS dashboards to view all of my content in one place. So that's kind of nice. So let's go ahead, and now that we've kind of looked at an overview of wildlife management, let's actually look at the apps themselves. And so I'll go ahead and get all of the technology ready. And so we'll start with the rapid wildlife reporter on the left-hand side of the screen here. So this is a configuration of quick capture for ArcGIS. And so ArcGIS quick capture. So the nice thing here is I have a really big button interface that's fully configurable for me. So when you as a user deploy this, right now we've given you kind of a a sample set of common species that we worked with when we were working with our African conservation users. These can be, you can add or remove species within these. And so we provided a large set of icons that people can kind of deploy and configure themselves. But out of the box, deployed, ready to go, you will get everything that you see on the screen here. So say I want to collect, so if I'm using my Windows machine now, so that's ArcGIS Quick Capture, and we'll also show a Survey 123 available on Windows 10, but also Android and iPhone, so kind of whatever device flavor you use in your organization. So if I wanted to collect buffalo, I can collect, say I saw a herd of 22 buffalo, and then I'll go ahead and submit that. So it's very fast. So I also saw some antelope. We saw 12. And then I'll notice this is going to automatically send for me. You'll notice that. And it's already sent the information before I was even able to get there. There's some settings in ArcGIS Quick Capture. So you can, if you wanted to maybe be able to, because that's going to capture you notice I'm inside in my home. So this is showing a low GPS accuracy on my device. That's why that information being shown there. When you're out in the field, you won't be receiving that. It's just telling me my accuracy may be a little off. So I need to, in that scenario, I could go to the map, change and drop the pinpoint to where I'm exactly am or where I saw the herd to get a little more accurate location there. This can also be integrated with other location providers you have. So if you have external GPS units to your device, all of the ArcGIS field solutions allow that. So that's just something that you have availability to. Also, I've downloaded this app. So I've submitted a couple, we've shown that, but if I just go back here, I've already downloaded this to my device. So the Rapid Wildlife Reporter ArcGIS Quick Capture project is downloaded to my device. So I can use that in a disconnected environment now. Right now I'm in a connected environment, so it'll behave the same, but I have that ability to then send that off. So that's going to be a pretty straightforward process from Quick Capture. From a Survey 123 perspective, I have the Wildlife Observation Reporter. And so again, I can use this in a connected or disconnected environment with external GPS units if I'd like. And so I'm going to go ahead and collect an observation. And just as we saw in the Rapid Wildlife Reporter, I have this ability to have a configurable animal list. And so we've written all of the solutions have extensive documentation to them as well, and as well as being technical supported. So within this, I've written a blog post to walk through how to adjust your animal list. I think that's a key configuration for this. So you deploy it as a user. You're probably, even if you have some of the species listed here, you're probably going to adjust depending on where you are, your geography and your habitat types. And so when I go through that configuration, that just streams to these, and you would configure these for your uses. And so maybe I want to look, I saw some antelope as well. It was a visual observation type, it's capturing the date and location for me. I could put notes in there. And then this gives me more of a kind of especially on a mobile device, a nice spinner button experience. So I can go ahead and select, let's say we saw 11. I can also enter text here if I wanted to. I can set the condition of the herd that I saw. Maybe saw a few that I couldn't count myself. Same for juveniles. And then if I had any photos, I could capture photos, or if I already, maybe I snapped a photo on another device, you can add that in, or maybe I snapped it earlier before I took my observation. You can add that as well. And then and I guess that's a key point of all of this is in the Rapid Wildlife Reporter and the Wildlife Observation Reporter, yes, I'm capturing it in two different styles, but this is all one single data source. So the Wildlife Observations feature layer is what we call it. So in ArcGIS Online, when I deploy all these solutions, I get that data set, and I'm feeding information into that same place, which will show how that works in a dashboard scenario. But also then you can pull in that type of information and edit it just like you would in your normal kind of data editing scenarios. And as David mentioned, in terms of operating with other business systems, that's a key part here. So yes, you probably are already collecting wildlife observations in other software or other means, other types of data collection analysis or capabilities. So within that, you can start integrating these together because it's all using core ArcGIS technology that's interoperable in terms of appending data, pulling data in, using as a feature layer. So that's kind of a key part of this. So we'll go ahead and just submit that. So you'll notice that I get a couple options. So I can continue this. Maybe I didn't mean to submit that. I can send it now or save this and then send it later once I get back into a connected mode. So I'll just go ahead and send that now. And so as a field worker, I've submitted a couple ways to get information back into our system. I can also go ahead and, so as a biologist back in the office, that protected area staff, I want to go ahead and look at kind of what's happening in the environment, what's happening in the community. So I can actually look at all of the observations happening on the bottom of the screen. I'll get a breakdown by species. So like, as I mentioned, when you update your animal list, this will be updated as well, because this is just pulling directly from the feature layer. Same with all of my observation dropdowns and information coming in. But maybe I want to look at specifically, just show me antelope observations. And I can have that. So when it comes in through the rapid wildlife portal and quick capture, it'll be the rapid type. But I can also say, show me visual or whatever it may be. So I can leave that. And then I also have this nice option to look within the kind of a past settings of maybe just show me today's observations or the past week, but also kind of within a time frame as well. And so we'll leave that as is for now, but I can see that these are our observations. I can click on them. I get a quick count of kind of so this was something that rapid came in. So I'm just getting a total animals, the date. And if it was more of a visual observation, I'd get more of that breakdown from the different animal types. So that's the wildlife observation dashboard. And kind of also, if I wanted to, that would kind of be I mixed the roles, but I think that's important. So I'm a protected area manager that wants to view that information, but also I'm a ecologist for the protected area and I want to get an overview. So it's kind of these apps this particular one would fit in a couple roles there. And then also I'm a biologist that wants to go ahead and do some analysis in the web, or maybe get some reporting or print out some capabilities that we saw. And so using the protected area reports application, which you'll notice we have a variety of data sets coming in. So the green paws are wildlife observations that were captured in the field. And the two different shades of blue, those locations are associated with conservation outreach and protection, but we wanted to have it so it's all in one place. So regardless of, so maybe that protected area role, so I'm working in a protected area and I'm doing a variety of reporting and analysis. So I need to have all that data available to me. So protected area reports will have all of that information available to me. So maybe we've set up bookmarks within the area. I can go ahead and filter information. So in this case, I want to look at just antelopes. And I can set a date range like I mentioned. And then maybe I want in my report or in my map I'm printing, just show me wildlife observations. And this is all configurable too. This is the key part of where I mentioned within that kind of the lower left part of that slide we saw is integrating other data from other business systems within your conservation organization. And that's kind of going back to what David was mentioning, this interoperability. Like you can start adding data to this component and these tools will still function properly. So we give you a set amount of data to start with, or the framework for the data that you fill in with your observations, but we fully expect that you would be adding your other information into this map. I can go ahead and change my base map if I wanted to. And this is the key part where David was mentioning from the analysis perspective, kind of these are ready to go analytical tools that I can now use in my web browser. So if I wanted to maybe calculate some densities, find that hotspots like you mentioned, even do things like extract data. So these are all just kind of out of the box tools that are available now within this kind of widget, again, in this configuration of web app builder. So this is fully expandable. If I wanted to print a map, I can just simply use the print widget. That would give me just a quick snapshot of what's seeing on the map. Maybe I did some analysis outputs within the perform analysis tool. And so I have that ability now to go ahead and print that capability out. But we also have this ability to create reports. And so you'll notice there's kind of 3 sections within this creating reports. And it's all associated with the types of data that we're talking about within the ArcGIS Solutions for Conservation. So in this case, I want to create a wildlife observation report. And I can go ahead and just maybe draw an area on the map. Maybe I wanted to do just a simple buffer around a point, whatever that may be. So you just kind of select the geography, the area you want to report on. And when I go ahead and report, it's going to give me the information about all of those observations right away. So I can just kind of get a quick screening here if I wanted to. I can actually download this information in a variety of formats, or in this case, sorry, a CSV. This would give me the actual tabular data of what we've shown with the location as well. And then I now actually want to generate a report that I can send to my colleague. And so in this case, it's going to generate a PDF report. It's actively working on generating that dynamic map for me. I can change the name of the report, add some comments in here. You'll notice we've kind of have the area selected on the map. It's giving me those specific records. And then the configurable part of this, so we've configured this to show these attributes that are associated with the wildlife observations. You certainly can go in to that configuration. So it's ready to go out of the box, but you can go in and configure it. Maybe you wanted to show certain types of data, or you've added attributes to what we've delivered for you. That's it's a totally effective way to do it as well. So you would be adding content. You would just add those attributes in here. Maybe you've added some other layers. That's all kind of you get to select what's shown on the report. But the nice thing here is I have a ready to go report. In a matter of seconds, I've kind of selected, filtered, viewed the information, and now I can just send off a report to a colleague to take a look at something. So that's the protected area reports application. And then I wanted to show that this is an overarching app that'll fit all of the areas of interest within a protected area. And I also wanted to kind of show up front, you'll notice a common pattern against the other 2 that I'll show is this protected area dashboard. So as a protected area manager, I want to look at all of the information that's happening in the park. And so this is going to give me a quick view of key metrics and what's happening within the operations, field operations in particular. So I can go in and if there was, so we'll kind of skipping ahead. This is showing protection incidents. I'll show this in the next round of demos. But maybe I wanted to go in and do some filtering by that, or in this case, just like we saw in the wildlife observation dashboard, I have that same interface at a larger view of the park. And so I'll come back to this application once in a second when we talk about protection operations. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what I mentioned, the protection operations solution. And so this solution helps conservation organizations managing protected areas track illegal activity and poaching incidents in and around the protected area. And so just as we saw in wildlife management, we really wanted to line up key user personas that we commonly talk to when we're working with users, we kind of identified when we're talking with users. So very, very similar pattern here. Field workers, protected area staff. So this could be a variety of users within the protected area, and protected area manager, as well as the important GIS, I just call this an analyst, right? So we're calling it GIS professional, but analyst, someone working with the data, integrating that from other types of systems where you're kind of monitoring that illegal activity process. And so very similar pattern that we saw in wildlife management with I'm a field worker. I want to capture tips out in the field. Maybe I got a local tip from a community member telling me about a horn stash in someone in a village next door, next to us, or maybe there is we've come across some evidence that we need to capture or report on, or we actively have a poaching incident that we've encountered and we need to kind of report on that. And so as that information comes into the field, again, it's all stored up in ArcGIS Online in a feature layer. And so that's kind of that. So that data then, I'm able to, as a protected area staff, I can use the Protection Incident Manager to monitor that incident as it goes through the process of investigation, track it, and kind of from that submission to completion, and you also get some metrics on it. So I can do that analysis and capabilities using protected area reports, as we showed with kind of the wildlife management solution. And then I want to view, as a protected area manager, I want to view the overall content within what's happening within our area. So let's go ahead and take a look at those apps one more time. And this time we'll just look at the survey component. And so I would open up Protection Incident Reporter. And within this survey, I have the ability to kind of select right up front. So this was something, common patterns, same with the Wildlife Observation Reporter and this one as well, is we've been working with conservation users, and they already have forms that are collected this information. So a lot of this was kind of taken directly from that input of things they're already collecting. So we know that they're collecting poaching incidents or evidence reports and tips. And so if I go ahead and select this, I get a nice kind of change of the attributes that are going to happen with it, or that I need to collect for each incident type. And so in tip, it's pretty straightforward. I can select a tip type, maybe photo incident. Evidence, if I wanted to, so I came across evidence we need to capture on. So maybe I found a camp, or in this case, I found an elephant carcass. And so this would give me some additional mortality report specific to that animal. Same as if I selected a rhinoceros, I would get a little bit different information. So again, that's the evidence side of things, but maybe I wanted to capture an illegal incident, some of the activity that I saw. So we saw someone fishing in the protected area. No one was arrested, but we did have an investigation. We captured the person's information, or people's information. We captured a net and a spear that they were using for the fishing. We confiscated the animals. I could take pictures of the items seized or the individual folks involved with illegal activity. And then I can just put in some notes here. And then when I submit this information in, that'll go ahead and push back that field report into the Protection Incident Manager. And so I'll just go ahead and select one that has already been submitted here. But if I do a quick refresh, this will show me that that report that just came in from the field. So if I wanted to go ahead and do in progress, I would select the date. We could talk about kind of the status, and this is key to tracking the report here. So maybe I wanted to move this from submitted to in progress. I save that now, and you'll notice the status report is showing up, and I can go ahead and filter. So just show me submitted information. This helps me kind of organize all of the activities, and so especially if this is going to show completed reports. So maybe I still want to view those. Maybe we need to move them back. They were a completed investigation. We need to reopen them. That's a possibility as well. I can also filter by incident type. So just show me poaching incidents, and then we can go in and select this area, and I could do that same type of information. So we'll go ahead and say that's in progress. And then one thing I did want to show is this ability to view the full incident detail. So just as we saw in our survey with all of the information that can be captured, right? So a variety of information, quite a bit happening in the field. One thing I wanted to show is in that pop-up, we want to give you the most important information, but also the ability to kind of view those incident details in the full report form. So in the web browser still, but I get that full information. So we saw this was a grazing incident with some livestock, large herd of cattle coming through. No suspects yet. We just saw the cattle themselves. So that's just something that you can actually, for all of the incidents coming in, you can actually view the details happening in the field. So I think that's kind of an important connection piece to live information coming from the field. We can manage this information and then also get a larger view of. So I've kind of gone through and managed it. And then as a protected area manager, I'm getting this large view of so let's just go ahead and take a look at, show me just the in progress reports. And then I can look at poaching types, or maybe there was some evidence in the field. And then a very similar pop-up experience that we saw in the past one. So I can view the incident details as well here, and that will give me all of that, all of the survey information there. So let's move on to the next area, and that is conservation outreach. And so the conservation outreach solution helps organizations with human wildlife conflict. So capture, managing, and monitoring any kind of impacts that are happening between wildlife and humans around protected areas. And so very similar pattern with the personas. You'll kind of notice the theme here, just this very common pattern we've uncovered. So I'm a field worker. I need to collect an incident that's happened with the local community. So I would use the wildlife conflict reporter to report on any type of conflict activity that's happening around the protected area that we need to kind of do a follow-up investigation to. And then as we saw in protection operations, I need to manage those reports as they're coming into our community. Excuse me. And then also I need to be able to do analysis and reporting on that. And as the protected area manager, I want to view an overview of what's happening, as well as kind of a larger view of the part. So let's go ahead and take a look at the actual applications themselves. And so actually a nice thing to note here is we've gone through all of these surveys. So maybe someone that is working, I'm a ranger, or I'm some field worker within a protected area, and I can have all of these kind of input capabilities, all of these surveys just downloaded to my device, and I can capture them easily on one app, and I don't have to have a bunch of paper content with me, or it's just an easy way to access a variety of surveys. And so with the wildlife conflict reporter, I'm going to go ahead and let's go collect some information. And so the conflict we saw, that we saw a large crop damage. There was a loss to someone's crop. So we'll go ahead and say it was severe damage. In this case, we're asking, is there a park investigation required? Meaning, if it was something where someone went out, a community outreach staff went out, they saw that there was kind of a report, so I'll call into the protected area, but it wasn't actually damaged, you could say no here. In this case, we saw a pretty large crop loss, so we want to work with that farmer to do an additional investigation. Maybe there's some funding or restitution needs to happen to kind of keep that percent, or additional work. Maybe we need to put some beehives in and around that property to keep out the elephant. Whatever type of normal activities you want to do, but this is a way to kind of capture the incident that's happening, and then also use those other tools in our toolbox of kind of the typical community outreach pattern we use. And so we'll say large crop loss. Elephant tracks were noted nearby. So we do believe it was an elephant that caused this. We'll capture some photos of the loss. I can put my information in here. If I the location of, so the village or the address of my location. So I could put that in here. And then if I'm on my device, I'll just use my mouse here, but I would just sign it on the screen with my signature. And I'll go ahead and send that now. And so this report is now pushed back into the Wildlife Conflict Manager. And if in this case, I won't refresh the app, but you get the idea. I'll just go ahead and select one of these. So let's go ahead and just look at this submitted. Let me look at park, the investigations required here. And we'll look at, on top here, we see crop damage. Very similar. You'll notice the similar kind of elephant tracks, large crop loss. Maybe I want to, actually that was the one that just came in today, sorry. And I want to go show me the in progress. I can give some status notes. If there was photos, I could see that as well. And I get kind of this nice pop-up. There's an investigation required. We get a nice pop-up of that. So that's moved through the system. And I also want to now go ahead and look at information that's happened, that's come in kind of a larger dashboard view of the incident. So if we want to go ahead and say, just show me severe, was there investigation required? Which in this case is probably all going to be yes. If there was different reporters, so different people capturing information, I can filter by that. And then we'll get that nice pop-up. I can get this information. If I wanted to go ahead and email that person, I can just click this here. Also, it's nice to include the reporter information is nice because maybe I need to give Sam a call. Get a little, as a protected area manager, hey, how's this going? Where are we at? Give me some additional details. So just kind of contact that person there. All right, so let's go ahead and go back. So we've looked at the kind of three main areas, ecology, protection, and outreach, and solutions that we've aligned within those. So how do you get these solutions? And that's a kind of a very key part of all this, right? So currently, we have an ArcGIS Pro add-in. That's a free add-in. You just add it right into ArcGIS Pro, and you can deploy these solutions. I would sign in with my user identity in ArcGIS Online, and all of the all of the layers, all of the maps that we saw, and the apps that we saw, the projects, all of that gets deployed into my content that I then can share with the key people in my organization using the common ArcGIS sharing patterns. So whether it's just to a small group of people using groups, I can share to my organization or to everyone. Most likely in these scenarios, you'd be sharing to a kind of a set groups of people within your organization. So that's the existing, as of today, deploy in ArcGIS Pro. Coming in a few weeks, so kind of in the next few weeks, we'll be releasing a new ArcGIS Solutions application. And that's what we're really excited about for our conservation community. So all of these solutions are available to you as Esri users, as Esri customers. So you have these available to you, and now you have this new way in your ArcGIS Online organization using the ArcGIS Solutions app to deploy the solutions very easily, fast, easy deployment in the web browser. And you'll notice there's in ArcGIS Online, there's kind of a little button icon with a few buttons on it. We call it the app switcher. So you would just select that, and just like you'd be able to open a dashboard or ArcGIS Hub or the Survey 123, whatever that may be, Insight, all the apps that come in ArcGIS, ArcGIS Solutions will just show up in your organization in the next release. And so this allows you to kind of have everything you need published directly into your content. You share it with your organization. And I took a screenshot here of kind of the what's coming. So this is actually what it will look like. There'll be a web app. And you'll see that we have wildlife management, conservation outreach, and protection operations. I would click on one of these tiles here. It would give me an overview, like a really couple paragraphs of what the solution is. And then there'll just be a Get Now button that I click, and it deploys everything for me. So we're really excited about that web deployment. That's coming very soon. And kind of I was thinking about the road ahead for all of this is, as I mentioned, kind of that fourth key area. So we have ecology, protection, outreach, and then infrastructure, very important for protected areas and the users we work with. And so that's just something that in its first release, it didn't come out. we're working on it actively. So that'll be coming in the near future. We'll have an infrastructure solution that'll be sitting right next to the other three. And then we'll also, we know invasive species management is a very key part of working for conservation organizations in protected areas. So that's something that will fit kind of under that ecology section. So that's, we're working on that. That's going to be kind of the road ahead. Things coming in the next few releases in the near future. Just that when I mentioned field worker tracking, think of that as just a capability that'll be available in all of the solutions that have field apps. And so it's something that using Tracker for ArcGIS, especially when it comes to dangerous situations or people working in remote areas, we need to just know where they're patrolling, where they are, just keep status. This is kind of the safety part, but also that allows us to start doing, providing analytic capabilities to you to figure out what is the percentage of the protected area we're patrolling, start doing advanced analysis and that capability there. And so the next one, I just want to kind of briefly mention another capability. Again, these would fit into solutions. So this tracking, as well as the notebooks. So using ArcGIS notebooks, which is just another capability in ArcGIS Online, you can now do kind of automated Python analytics. So that's something you could just start doing now as a user without having this, you don't have to have the solutions we deliver. But we want to offer that as kind of just like we do building on other core technology, this ability for us to deliver analysis notebooks that you can just start plugging your information in and not have to worry about knowing how to write Python. So we want to be able to provide that. That's something that we're thinking about how we deliver using ArcGIS notebooks. That's a common pattern there. And then David mentioned ArcGIS Hub, and I want to bring this up again because it's something that in our new delivery mechanism in the ArcGIS Solutions app, we're gonna have a lot more capability to deliver configured ArcGIS Hub initiatives and sites for you. So these are kind of, think of these as the core ArcGIS Hub capability, but all of that design and development we would just be doing, and you just deploy the solution. And so this would help you with increasing your community partnership. So especially with outreach, you want to be working with local communities. I think the kind of a solution with ArcGIS Hub built in would be really awesome. So that would allow them to have their own user identity and submit feedback and information, maybe be capturing data, that kind of two-way collaboration. I think there's a lot that we can build on there. But even just working with other conservation organizations or other partners you're already existing with. So it's not just, so I think that the community for sure, the kind of public community, but also other community partnerships you have. I think there's some really awesome things we can build on there. And as we mentioned, kind of as we build and iterate these solutions, your feedback and advice and input and any information you can kind of help us as we guide through this process. We're really here to help serve you and your business challenges and your needs. So that's kind of a big part of solutions, and I just wanted to put that in there. We're always looking for additional feedback and folks to wrap up with. So let's go ahead and so we'll just go. With that being said, I know there's probably quite a few questions that came in. We got plenty of time, at least 20 minutes here. We can just open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate the demo. We have a few questions that have come in, and so the first one is, wanted to find out if any of the collected data might be downloaded into an Excel spreadsheet. For example, the Wildlife Conflict Manager, or even where external people report incidents.
Absolutely. And so let me actually just, while I'm talking through that, I will just open up. This is where all of the content that we saw. So I've deployed the solutions into my organization. We'll go to, so let's say wildlife conflicts. And so just kind of a core capability. This is a featured layer item. So think of this as your data set that's stored in ArcGIS Online, and all the information is captured. So the feature layer used to store this information. I can simply export this, and just so kind of using common ArcGIS Online capabilities, I can export this in a variety of formats and then use that and wherever so in this case, I could take a nice CSV file that would give me a location, some location attributes as well, in addition to the data that we would see. So this is all the captured information. But I do this simply just go ahead and just export that data. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. Let's see. Here's a question from Mervyn Lauder. We often need to manage several reserves. Should each reserve get its own set of apps and reporters? Or is there an option to create a field called reserve and then the field worker selects the appropriate reserve? What approach would you recommend?
That's a great question. I think it is a bit specific to your organization in terms of how you are maybe already capturing data or would like to, because it's definitely would be a user preference scenario. I would probably, especially if you wanted to be monitoring all of the reserves in kind of a single location, I probably would deploy the solution and add an additional attribute specific to the reserve that then you would just have. You can also update the survey or however you're capturing. All of these are configurable. So that's kind of that key part of adding your own attribution. So if it was me, it might make sense to go ahead and just add an additional attribute, and then you would just add that field to the survey as well that's captured. There's a couple ways to do it. So I think it really down to preference and how you're already collecting data, but both would be effective, and the solutions would handle both.
So just to add to that, some of the organizations that are out there running these conservation solutions and this geospatial infrastructure with ArcGIS Online that has been deployed in a custom manner, they vary from individual protected area managers to national governments that have a park system, as well as nonprofits like African Parks, which have multiple protected areas that they're responsible for in multiple countries. And it's absolutely possible to have a single ArcGIS Online organization which serves as the infrastructure for all of the protected areas. You have the means within ArcGIS Online to form groups, and those groups might be specific to a protected area or activities within the protected area. But at the same time, you might have a standard form that you're publishing out for the entire organization, regardless of the area of work. So you have a common collection template that each protected area could then use. So the benefit of that is when an organization signs in, when an individual in that protected area signs into that group, receives their application, goes to work, they're producing maps that are relevant to that protected area. However, the entire organization could build dashboards to summarize those activities across a much larger, across the entire network, let's say. Another question for you, Matt. What could you provide? What more info could you provide about what's coming with the invasive species management solution?
Yeah. So I think that's the key caveat would be definitely looking for input if there were things that that users had in mind. But where my head's at, where for the invasive species management would be, we definitely need to have that common pattern that we have in other field operations. So I need to be able to capture that any type of, whether it's a treatment area, the actual observation of an invasive species. So we definitely need to be introducing some new capabilities to be able to capture that kind of area type of feature, so polygons as well as points. So there's definitely going to be a field component of capturing and managing treatment and observation. We'll have a data management component, just like we saw with the other, so wildlife conflict manager and protection incident manager, so that managing the information in a nice web browser experience, and then a dashboard capability. So those would be the initial common patterns, but I do think there's more once we start digging in. We have not gotten to that process yet, so certainly we could use some feedback. But I think the key part within the invasive species management is the not just observation, but how is the actual management application and kind of coordination happening. So I think those two pieces would be key there.
Excellent, thank you, Matt. We've got a question about training, and I thought perhaps you could just pull up the Learn ArcGIS site.
Sure.
So one of the, traditionally training in GIS required a very formal engagement in an instructor-led setting. And over the years, we've released many more online learning options. Our online learning catalog we made free many years ago, so that you could go through those kind of formal self-managed courses on your own. We then migrated towards this sort of modular learning environment called Learn ArcGIS. And so on the Learn page, if you just scroll down for a minute, Matt, you can see many different examples to help you get started. Getting started with ArcGIS, specific products like Survey 123 that you can focus on. So at the very top, if you were go to the gallery, yep, you can actually search for the specific tools. And so in the upper left corner, for example, Matt showed a bit about quick capture. So there's a quick lesson, 33 minutes to give you sort of an overview, actually 2 hours and 33 minutes. So some of these are not only modular lessons, they're actually pathways. So if you were to, click on that map, it's actually 3 different lessons that, starting with a quick video, what is this thing, how does it work? Reviewing an article, an overview, and then a 2-hour learn lesson that you could work through on your own pace and completely learn these tools. So many options there. Matt, I was thinking that it would be good to show the overview story map for the conservation solutions, and just to provide that reference out for everyone. So this is getting to know the conservation solutions story map, and just as Matt just did, if you were just to type that search in, it should take you to this page. So this is an overview of what Matt just covered. When you get down into the actual applications, it actually will give you a try it now link, and so you can just open up those dashboards, interact with them in the same manner that Matt did. As well as have the links to go over to the solutions, the ArcGIS Solutions website, where you can get the information as to how to deploy and configure these tools in ArcGIS Online. So hopefully that relates to the training question. William had a question about remote cameras and networks to manage them. So this is a little bit outside of our fundamental capabilities at Esri, as compared to tying in data feeds from many different types of camera systems. So Matt, I'm not sure if you have any off-the-cuff guidance on what you've seen working in other applications. We've seen many examples of dashboards, which include summaries of content that are native in ArcGIS Online, as well as coming in from other data feeds. But Matt, do you have any specific guidance on that? Or?
Yeah, and I think it so that it's an interesting one with cameras. So the location would be tied to, or obviously we captured 100 images at one location. So I guess it's kind of a matter of what it's going back to, like what we would want to do with that data. So if it's a matter of we're observing for a specific type of species that we wanted, so it's less about the location is important, but it's not so much like we're capturing observations as we would on the fly with the Wildlife Observation Reporter. We do have a capability in our solutions called Wildlife Photo Survey, and that's kind of an adaptation of what we've seen in other kind of local government scenarios where they're using cameras and capturing building property assessments. Same type of scenario, so that could be something that we're actually thinking about integrating right now with the wildlife management solution. So this capability of managing a bunch of images coming in, and we need to do kind of a QC process. We're looking for a certain type of species within those. So I guess it's a matter of like what kind of questions you want to ask of the data and get out of it. So that's one, to be able to filter quickly through a bunch of images. It also could be if you just want to view that content in a nice ArcGIS setting. So you have the location of the camera trap, you have the wildlife camera, you have the good and all of the images associated. There's now an application in ArcGIS Online that will allow you to, let's go here. So if you don't know in ArcGIS Online, I'm in my content and I can use this create button. There's a lot of great stuff here, but I can use configurable apps. And there is one for an attachment viewer. And so essentially that's more of a, for a location, show me the attached pictures. So you could manage it in a way that looking at all of the photos coming in for a location. So hopefully that answers the question. I almost need a little more to help, I think, but I think there's a couple ways that I've been thinking about how to manage that type of camera information coming, because I think it's really important. So it could also be that you're now taking the location of photos coming in, and you can be, I wonder if we can even do some automation to say, this observation happened at this site, that then gets we can load that into the larger wildlife observation data set that's coming in. So kind of merge those together. So that would be all just common, essentially a common append data functions within ArcGIS. So nothing too hard there. So I think there's a lot of capability there that you could do. It's just a matter of what kind of things you would like to ask of it and do with it.
Thanks, Matt. So a few more questions. Denton from Peace Parks is asking about connectivity. And so because we are talking about a cloud-based system here, how can this solution support rangers that are operating in very disconnected environments?
Absolutely. So I think when it comes to our field apps, so the core ArcGIS field capability, and then how we've also configured our solutions, all of the surveys and the quick capture, I would expect that I'm a ranger going out on patrol, and I know I'm going to have spotty connectivity. All of them are wired up based on just kind of core capability to, I would download the surveys, I would download my project before we go out, and that way I just have that on my device. I never have to worry about any information getting corrupted or anything like that and sending it. Maybe because especially I think that almost the trickiest part is not so much when I get fully disconnected or I'm connected, as in that like on and off connected mode where it's dropping or it's bad. It's kind of still has a signal, but it's not quite strong enough. So when it's downloaded, you could just go have them on the device, whatever that may be. Sometimes it's one device for a patrol of folks or per person, whatever that is, on the device, ready to go. You go capture that, and then when you get back into a strong connection area or better connection area, you could then just it would start sending that for you. It would have an outbox that's in survey. You saw that, right? I said submit now, but I can also just put it in my outbox, and then when I'm ready, I can send those. And then quick capture, I believe it would just hold on to them and then just send them off when it's connected. That's a key part of it. It's for location. We're not really viewing maps or any content in the field. One thing I want to do going forward is we have this other application called Explorer for ArcGIS that would allow me to view reference information about our protected area. So maybe water resource information, infrastructure, roads, and other assets that we need to look at, or pretty much anything that's pertinent and necessary for me to do my job. I just need to have an offline map for that. And so that's a capability out of the box that I could just have a downloaded map to my device. So that's not something that's in the solution yet, but it's just kind of a core capability that you could also just wire up yourself very easily. But I do think we'll include that as like this is the map configured for you, and you add your data to it. You add your park boundary, you add all of your infrastructure, or just maybe other types of habitat, or whatever it is that you need to do your job. That's a way from an offline capability perspective that would work really nicely, I think.
Excellent, thank you, Matt. And I would just comment that these solutions we're demonstrating today, we've been spending the last 2.5 years in the field with many different protected area management organizations, predominantly in Africa. And we've been running demos and using these actual mobile tools in the field in a variety of different environments. And I've been extremely impressed with the performance and synchronization capability in low bandwidth environments. And so the observations, there was a question earlier about the size of images in Survey 123, which you have some control over. If taking a photo is part of your survey collect, you can manage. That is typically by far the largest file that is passed through the network back to ArcGIS Online to feed into the dashboards and other solutions. So you have some control relative to the photographs. Otherwise, all of the survey content is encrypted and compressed in a manner that is very efficient across low bandwidth settings. So many great questions here. We're not going to be able to get to all of them. We've got a few minutes left. We'll try to get to a couple more. Please email us directly. You'll see our email on the screen there, and any questions that we aren't able to get to right now, we'd love to stay in touch with everyone. So Rusty's got a question about data management and historic geodatabase and shapefiles that are managed in a physical server. And so there's a question about how to migrate into ArcGIS Online in general, and sort of what the best practice is to make that migration.
That's a great question. So if you, I consider it almost like you could do it a couple ways. So if you wanted to continue to operate with that database sitting on your infrastructure somewhere, and also then be collecting information using the solutions, you could do the one-way street of exporting or even automating and scripting the data captured in the wildlife observation reporter, quick wildlife, rapid wildlife, all of those wildlife observations in that feature layer. You could be exporting that data down to your database, so on your infrastructure. So if that makes most sense for you, that's totally just a normal configuration pattern in ArcGIS. Another way is maybe you want to get all of that information in the database up into the feature layer, which then the nice thing there is you have all that historic data that's now available in dashboards and other apps, and you can start interacting with historic data as well as the kind of current observations. And so I think the latter, that latter option is really nice, especially when it comes to the end result of how you do analytics, or allowing management or like biologists, ecologists to view the larger historic context there. So that would simply be a matter of migrating. So it might be dangerous doing a live demo here, but it's not that. I'm just joking. I'm going to be running ArcGIS Pro here. I can also do this while that's loading. You can do an append on, so let's say wildlife observations. So this is what gets deployed with the solution. I can't update data directly here. I would say caveat there is, depending on the size of your file and how you want to do it, that is something that's possible. But I would actually maybe I want to go into, so I mentioned the current deployment tool method. So maybe I want to load information into it. So this is just using the append tool in ArcGIS Pro. The append tool is also just a core tool that's also in ArcMap. So if you had ArcMap and you didn't have Pro, like whatever it may be. But I would just say, where's my input data coming from? What data set do I want to target? And so the nice thing here, working in Pro, is I could say, hey, show me conservation, show me my wildlife observations. And I want to load data from a data set into this. And what I mainly wanted to show with this whole demo is this field map capability. So I get a map field. So maybe most likely your attributes might be a little different than what we've lined up. And that's okay. And so you have the ability to match kind of what is coming in this data set. You can also add attributes here and then map. I don't have a target to show, but maybe I have, or sorry, the input data set. You would put your data in there and map it out here, run it, and that's ready to go. So that is a just kind of core to, I just wanted to show that appending capability and the field mapping. It's a very common kind of data workflow that people do to kind of migrate information in and out of the solution.
Excellent, thank you, Matt. There are so many terrific questions here. I'm really regretting the fact that we're out of time. So I want to, Matt, if you can just leave that screen up for a minute. Really want to encourage you to email us directly with your outstanding questions. There's a question about licensing and cost. So ArcGIS Solutions are free. If you have ArcGIS Online, you simply download and utilize these tools. If you don't have ArcGIS Online, then I want to encourage you to search for Esri Conservation. On our industry pages for conservation, there is a conservation grant page, and we can help direct you to the most affordable program. In many cases, depending on where you're working, we have a protected area management initiative that includes the donation of the Esri platform for protected area management work across the continent of Africa and other developing countries for the next 9 years now, up until 2030. So you can email me directly about that offering, and there's a variety of low-cost ways we can make sure you have access to ArcGIS. But the solutions that Matt is showing are freely available. They are open source. You can configure them and tweak them to meet your organization's needs. And I just want to stress that they are collections of existing Esri tools. So some of the questions, a common theme of the questions relate to when a solution will be offered, for example, specifically for invasive species management. And while we're working towards that, I want to encourage you to think about using Quick Capture and Survey 123 or Collector, or the existing tools we have today, which can be configured to address those challenges. And so you have the ability with all of these building blocks of ArcGIS to build your own solutions, although Matt's team is working to make those even simpler from a deployment and use perspective. So thank you so much for all of you who have stuck with us. There is a brief survey. We would really appreciate your feedback to help improve our future webinars. And take care, everyone. Wishing all of you the very best. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.